So here we go live. So welcome everyone to Meshery Development Meeting. Today is 2nd of August, new month. So we are up again with a couple of exciting updates of Meshery and some announcements. So I have shared the meeting minutes in chat. If you got any agenda, feel free to add it in and don't forget to mark your attendance. And before we start off, so if you got webcams, don't be shy. You just need to have a shirt on. So feel free to open your webcams. It's always nice to interact with face than audio. So with that, we'll be following our weekly newcomers tradition to welcome newcomer. So if you are joining this call for the first time and haven't introduced yet to the community, this is your chance. You can unmute yourself and give a quick introduction and say hi to the community. So anyone joining for the first time, I'm just glancing the list. Oh, hi, Nikunj. Yeah.
1.5 years.
I muted Nikunj.
Hello.
Hey Nikunj, if you want to say hi, please do it in chat. Your audio is on. We're not able to hear it, and the background noise is too loud. So it's nice to have you, though.
All right. Do say hi in chat, Nikunj. Okay, yes. So anyone else who's joining for the first time? Okay. One hand up from Mohammed. So hi, Mohammed. Would like to introduce?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'm Mohammed Abdullah from Algeria, and I'm a software developer. During the last period, I was developing in Ruby on Rails. And now, during the last period, I switched my interest into Kubernetes and Golang. And I found this community on GitHub, which it looks so active. So I'm interested to know what's going on.
Oh, that's great. Do start the repository because you find it on GitHub, so you have to. All right. Nice to have you, Mohammed. Welcome to the call. So next up we have Archit. So hi, Archit. Would like to introduce?
Hi everyone, my name is Archit. So I'm new here. I'm not new to open source, but I'm new to layer 5. So I'm just finding my way around. I'm from India and I'm a third year computer science student. That's it.
All right. That's cool. Nice to have you, Archit. Hopefully you will enjoy and find a good first issue to work on.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll start off with today's announcement. So last week, we opened up a poll on SMP contributors mailing list to vote for Service Mesh performance maintainer, Aditya Narayan Zubedi. So he has won the voting list. So meet the new maintainer of Service Mesh performance, Aditya. I have also created a Discuss forum post. I'll quickly share that in chat. So Aditya has made over 180 pull requests on the all the 5 projects. So a very congratulations to Aditya. All right. Since he is on the call and he's co-host, so Aditya would like to say a few words.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for having trust in me. Yeah, I hope I get to interact with more people and guide more contributors to the project and contribute more to the project as well. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Subedi, you remember how long have you been around? Do you recall?
So the first time I made a PR was around September 2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
September, okay. Yeah, October 2021. Yeah.
So right, you're almost at your 2-year anniversary then, which is you've been through a few things. So did you do a GSOC with us?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And and a bunch of other things. It's been 2 years, so there's like a lot of things in there. If you take, 23 months or 180 PRs divided by 23 months, that's a healthy cadence. Having said that, PRs clearly aren't, or pull requests clearly aren't the only way to measure someone's engagement. Sometimes people are engaged here very meaningfully for a long time and 0 PRs, but they're having a big impact. Anyway, in Subedi's case, one of our projects is Service Mesh Performance. We've considered renaming it to Cloud Native Performance. It was Microsoft that had suggested that not too long ago. But Subedi, you've one of the projects that you own is a component of Service Mesh Performance. It's the dashboard that's out there. I was just talking to maintainers of Istio yesterday and was mentioning that work specifically because they're looking to revamp. They had a whole working group dedicated to performance as of their 1.16 release, which was, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, maybe. And they're looking to revitalize that area. And so, I don't know, yeah, you might be hearing from some of those folks. So
Yeah, sure.
they can talk to our new maintainer. That's where I'll point them. So
Yeah, sure,
awesome.
sure.
Congrats, man. Congrats.
Once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right. So moving on next. So I heard someone saying they found Meshery over GitHub. So I'll share the link of Meshery repository. So do start the repository and share it with your friends, peers. All right. So if you haven't published your first design in Meshery catalog, so we now have the steps and a video that's available on YouTube and on docs.meshery.io. So do check out this and publish your first design. And you will be definitely receiving a tweet shout out from Meshery's Twitter account. All right. So with that, we'll be moving on with topics. So first up on top of the list, we have an update from Abhi on MeshMap Snapshot. So Abhi would like to take the stage.
Yeah, sure. Just a minute. Yeah, so there are a few breaking changes in the MeshMap UI interface and our MeshMap Snapshot service, which you see here. So what it does is like it captures your infrastructure and visualize it and send it to you as a comment inside the GitHub pull request. And this way you are capable of knowing, like, I mean, how your PR changed the infrastructure, infrastructure of your organization, for example, right? So that's what MeshMap Snapshot does. So what I was saying is like we had few breaking changes in the MeshMap, and we were dependent on Cypress on taking the screenshots and passing it through GitHub pull request. So due to that, like we are having troubles, posting that MeshMap screenshots. So yeah, that's what the PR fix is. I mean, this is not the actual fix, but this is just an upgrade. The actual fix is made in the MeshMap Snapshot repository. I'll just link that snapshot repository for you to see if you want to. Then you were earlier using Meshery MeshMap Snapshot 0.0.5 version, and now it's been upgraded to 0.0.8. So in case like in future, like we get troubles like this and we want to migrate or upgrade the MeshMap snapshots, so here is the documentation as well that I added. So it's quite simple to do. First of all, you have to update your workflow YAML with the version that you want to change to, and there are few upgrade migrate guides that hold true for right. I mean, I think it should be also true for the general, but what it says is like if there is change in the action.yaml, so action.yaml is the root of the action. So whenever you call any action, for example, here we are calling the MeshMap snapshot action. So inside the repo there should be a root level action.yml file which should be called. So given the change is done in action.yaml and that change needs to be shipped So updating the workflow is a required thing. Like it should be required. I mean, you should be changing it no matter what. If you want to, move to the latest version. Given the changes are files other than in action.yaml, so it's an optional thing. So right now, if you see the pull request, so the change was not in the action.yaml, so it was an optional thing. Even if I had not, made the updates here, so it could have worked fine just after merging the PR into the master. So yeah, that was just an upgrade migrate guide that I added, and that was in short about MeshMap Snapshot as well.
Yeah,
There
so
are other few.
Abhi, question on that. So anyone who's using the version of MeshMap Snapshot as of yesterday, they're broken. Is that right? So there's no backwards compatibility here?
No,
Okay.
they're not broken. That's what I said. Like, if you see the last PR merge, that's not into the root directory. Like there will be very few scenarios where they will be broken stage. I mean, changing this repository, I mean, merging the code in this repository will pass everything around everywhere where whoever is using this section. I mean, whoever is using this mesh transaction.
Yeah, but unless they choose to upgrade to that new version, they'll still be using the old version.
Yeah, given they are using old, I mean, see, this is the action.yaml file. It hasn't been changed from last 2 months. So if there is change in action.yml, which is a root old file, only then they will be required to upgrade their workflows. Given changes any other file, they won't require it. So this PR that I just merged is not required at all. I mean, if I had just 0.05 here, it would have worked as fine. So the people who are already using 0.0.5, they won't see any problems. The whole problem, I mean, merging the PR in the snapshot repository, I mean, merging the fix in the snapshot repository itself would fix the issue for everyone. So there is, yeah.
Okay, so no breaking change in this case, although
No.
that is something that we have to look out for, because
Yes.
whether you change the action.yaml or not, any changes within MeshMap, within Meshery Cloud, any of those can break this and cause backwards incompatibility. And so
I think earlier it was written in that way, but I'm quite sure that now it is not, because we are very much less dependent on the UI behaviors right now. Like change any UI behavior inside the MeshMap, and it won't break. Like just remove the screenshot button from the MeshMap, and it still won't break. It would still behave the way. It would still capture the screenshot and send it. So it was previously, heavily dependent on the UI button. The UI button must be clicked, then snapshot should have been dispatched, and now it's not. So yeah, earlier it was to what you said, that it was totally highly dependent on the MeshMap source code, and now it is somewhat not very true, or is 50%, 60% true.
good. Yeah, so it's more resilient. This is good. It's a positive step. That's good. My comment is really aside from this. It's like in relation to what's happening here, but it is to say that going forth, we'll have to be careful not to break backwards compatibility as we release new versions. Otherwise, there's an install base that we'll need to go to and help facilitate an upgrade for. And so if we break backwards compatibility at a different time, we'll need to give consideration as to how to continue to support older versions and have an understanding of how large that install base is. So for Uzair and Pranav and anyone else who, any other maintainer, there's a list of people that have installed the snapshot action and have configured a GitHub integration with their account. It's something to begin to track. It's something to begin to have a statistics board on, or statistics chart on how many people have installed and at what version. Nice, good. This is positive, Abhi.
Other than that, there are a few minor improvements in the UI UX. First of all, like if you're using design configurator in Meshery UI or MeshMap in general, so there is new feature that would deduplicate components from all the versions and would add it as a wildcard entry. I think, yeah, that's what the PR is. It's again a very minor change, and this one is specifically related to MeshMap, so I won't talk about it at the moment, or it is not. So earlier RGSF forms, if has invalid schema crashes in front of the user, the UI becomes completely unusable, and people won't be able to perform anything. Like their design will be lost at the point they click on the form which has invalid schema. First of all, there shouldn't be any invalid schema. We check that we validate the schema while sending from the backend. But in case if it does, like in the example of custom resource definition where our schema validator is not able to catch an invalid RGSF form, RGSF schema. So in that case, even if it comes to the UI, it won't crash it. So your data is secure and your changes are, yeah, it won't go away. So that's the second update. Third. Yeah, I think that's it from my side today.
All right. Thanks, Abhi. So moving up next, we have an item on design docs mesh model user guide from Parth. So do we have Parth on the call?
I'm not sure, but just as a side note, Parth was on Monday's call, the websites meeting, and I think he had a couple of concerns inside of the same PR. One was a docs update and another one was, but I forget, but both of them were covered on Monday in case he's not here. The gist of it was Karan, who's on today's call, I think has some feedback for him. And while Karan will be asking for some changes, part of the point that was conveyed was that how helpful it is for someone to make a draft, someone to put up information like this about what features are available and how to use them. And even if some of the info it needs updated or isn't quite exactly right, it's still very helpful. It's a lot easier for everyone else to come behind and fine tune it, beat it up a little bit. So we need to do that, fine tune this, and I'm sure it'll get merged. There's some things that we don't want to do with screenshots if we can, but it's probably not worth mentioning at the moment. But anyway, it's good.
All righty. So Freedisch, you're up next.
All right, let me share my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Thibaut, do we need a drum roll on this one? Is this the big one? Is this the?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay. So, shit, my screen is stuck. But anyway, it's actually to add support for those 3 endpoints: mesh model, relationship, and mesh model component, and mesh model. So, well,
Thibaut, sorry to interrupt. Your screen share hasn't come through just yet, or not for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Maybe you were just giving context for everyone while it comes up. So sorry to interrupt.
Okay. No, my screen is stuck. That's why. But anyway, so I was saying that I'm supposed to. The goal was to retrieve the host ID and the host name from the registrant from those from 3 endpoints, and there was one endpoint that was actually misbehaving, the one for meshmodel/meshmodel, but now it's okay. And yeah, I actually updated the get model inside of meshkit, and right now I think it should be okay. So yeah.
Yeah, Abdullah, thoughts on this? Potentially even Pranav or Uzair or
To take a look into this PR.
say it again, Abhi?
I'll take a look into this PR and leave a comment.
Okay, Abdullah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Good. Hey, do you want to talk about or Uzman maybe, do you want to talk about the outcome of what would happen based on this PR? How these changes would get used? Oh, Uzman. Mr. Sadiq. Well, Uzman might not be available, but and my singing voice isn't quite warmed up yet. But well, does anybody have the access to the playground or just the default Meshery dashboard up? There's a settings page in which this additional information, these APIs, will have a pretty significant impact. There's a settings page called Mesh Model Browser. So it strikes me that we have about our typical average of about 35 people on the call. I'm guessing there's 12.5 people. 12 people that understand this and 14.5 people that don't understand this or something. So maybe it's worth a moment just to explain a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes. And that way other people who can use it or can contribute around it if they would like to. So I don't know that this is the best way to explain it, but Meshery manages other infrastructure. As it manages that infrastructure, it models the different types of infrastructure that it manages. So if it touches up against an AWS load balancer, like that's on the screen right here, well, it has a particular model, a particular set of components that it uses to as logical constructs for how to configure an AWS load balancer and what properties of that load balancer it can configure and how those properties of that component relate to properties of Prometheus, for example, and maybe some metrics that would be garnered from the amount of traffic that goes across the load balancer, just as a random example. So anyway, Meshery gets, as it boots up, right now, it's really as it boots up, it loads up all these models, and it can be really helpful for users as they go to interact with those models and understand all those properties, configure all the infrastructure, that they can do so in an interface like this. But as a user or as an administrator of Meshery, it is quite helpful to go over to the settings area and just look at, in a tabular way, in a data table way, get a summary of what all those models and all those components are. And so in this environment, there's 124 models. They have X number of components. Those components have X number of properties. Sometimes if you're trying to configure something and maybe it's not working like you want it to, or you're not sure, if you have some questions about these packages, you can use an interface like this to go over and examine them more deeply. there's a couple of pieces of information that are missing from this browser, from this mesh model view. One of those is, well, or two of them, I guess, Thibaut, are the things that you were looking at, which is host, like registrant and host. So, which is to say, if I signed into this system that Gaurav is sharing right now, and maybe I had a new model for water bottle and how you can configure a water bottle, the properties of like the label here, what color it might be, the brand that it has, nutrition facts or whatever. So these are all properties. And anyway, I would model this out in this same way. I would bring it to this Meshery server. So I would sign in, and there's a few of you that are working on the ability for mesheryctl to allow a user to take that description, take that model, it's just a bunch of JSON, and import it into an actively running server, which is nice because you can bring your own models. There's lots and lots of types of infrastructure out there. We're seeing some Azure stuff, some AWS stuff, but there's even more than that. Well, so if this interface exposes that info, that's what I just was saying. Now, all of these models were imported and they were loaded up on boot of Meshery server. Great. So there's a bunch of default ones. But if Lee brings his special water bottle one with his own properties and stuff like that, and it gets registered, well, Thibaut might have a question about what the heck this water bottle component is, and want a better understanding as to who registered it. And actually, if I use this in my design and I want a new one of these provisioned and configured with a blue label, when I'm ready to have that design deployed, to whom is that request sent? Which is to say, another way of asking that is like, who registered this model and where should I send that request for a new instance of a water bottle? Oh, well, you should send it to Lee because he's the one that registered it. So conceptually, Lee should be capable of instantiating a new version of one of these. And so I was using an example in which I registered something, but most of these models are registered by other systems. Another system like a Meshery adapter. A Meshery adapter is an optional component. Maybe the adapter is present, maybe it's not. If you turn on an adapter, it will register its models, its capabilities with Meshery server. And so if someone goes to deploy a Linkerd service mesh and wants to configure it, well, when it's time to create that service mesh and configure it, where should that request go? So the question is, who registered those components? And so that's what Thibaut is working on. He's exposing, right now, when you look at the data table, and it shows you all the information about all these models and all these components, what it does not show you is who registered these. What host or who's the registrant? Which in turn means where should these requests be sent? Who's going to handle these models? And that information is not present. So that's what Thibaut is doing. He's bringing that. So what Usman was supposed to say a second ago, if he's still on, is that there would be new columns displayed inside of here, either new columns or a new tab, models, components, relationships, hosts.
Yeah, so regarding that, the endpoint is still under, like, so it's not yet available. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So that's the endpoint that we're talking about, is that Thibaut is just showing off his work on the changes to those endpoints. So he has an open PR that brings them forward.
Yeah. He was telling that there is a change inside meshkit that is required. So that's
Okay. Well, so on that, so Thibaut, you first need a new release of meshkit, and then you can get your other PR merged in Meshery server? Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Just like Usman said. Nice. Okay, great. And then Abdullah's going to put his eyeballs on it. And okay. And then do we know who's doing the UI changes? Usman, I wonder if you know. Did someone volunteer on that already? Or is that still up for grabs?
Which part?
Oh, the UI changes. Do we know who's going to do that?
I was assigned to, but I haven't changed the endpoint. I have assigned that issue to myself.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Alrighty. So let's move to next item. That's from Yash. So Yash would like to share. Is this Yash Sharma or like the another one, Yash Sharma too?
Actually.
Oh,
Yes, present.
okay then. So he's not on the call. So we'll move to Pranav's update. So update on Meshery Helm chart.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so a little bit of context about this is that Meshery as an extensive cloud native manager is able to integrate with different components and different integrations. One of which is like we just discussed that service meshes, and service meshes are actually deployed and handled by these adapters. So currently Meshery can also be installed in a number of ways, one of which is Helm charts. And there was an issue wherein we were predefining like all the adapters in the default installation, due to which Meshery's default installation was little hefty for normal users. So that is basically my work in this PR is basically to reduce that size and ensure that we don't first of all pre-install all the adapters. Secondly, there was a bug in our already existing Helm chart, that is like there was a recent change that changes the namespace. Basically, earlier the namespace was set to default due to some reason, and there was a change that makes it at Meshery namespace by default. Like it changes this, and the change for this release dot namespaces were not made throughout all the subcharts, all the templates in the chart, and that's the reason. Like if you currently install Meshery to Helm chart, it will fail. So first of all, this addresses that bug that if you install Meshery, it won't fail to Helm chart. Second issue is that it disable all the adapters. So that's it about this PR. We can merge it. Like I can like do some more changes in it if we want to wait, but we can merge it because it works fine. If you want to see a demo, I can show right now as well. So let me show you. Hopefully it's visible. So as you can see currently in this specific Kubernetes version, I don't have Meshery. And if I show you my namespaces, specifically the code in my Meshery namespace, there would be nothing, though I have Meshery namespace running. So now if I do, okay, one more thing, like little bit more context, that is like Meshery currently support two Helm charts. One is for Meshery operator, other one is for Meshery. Currently we're discussing this about Meshery, which internally deploys Meshery operator as well. So that's one more thing. So if I do Meshery install Meshery, and I would be using my local chart in which I made changes. So if I do install, now Meshery is deployed, though there is a bug in which like currently shows default, even though it's installed in Meshery namespace. So this is the second bug which I can fix. But now if I go to get code and I see in my Meshery namespace, so I will just have one pod that is Meshery, and it's running perfectly fine. If I logs, yeah, it's running fine, and we can also like go to the specific deployment if we want. So That's about my changes. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
Who introduced that last bug? That basically, I guess it sounds like it broke the Helm chart. I mean, like.
Yeah. Currently, like you cannot install. There was some like somebody like added the support for Meshery in our main chart. So if I go above, somebody actually moved it to this metadata there. So when it was moved, the change wasn't made in all the templates. So that is why it fails if you currently install. But now it's fine.
So the reason, there's two reasons why I ask who did this. One is because, well, one is to let everybody know that for the most part, like that question isn't about blame. It's not about blame. It's not about assigning fault. It's about examining the change and trying to understand if there's process or understanding or something that can be improved so that we avoid the bug. That's the first reason I was asking. The second reason I was asking is because, well, someone had put up a PR and then I was helping improve it based on feedback. And I think it's my bug, or it's as much my fault as anyone else's. And so I just wanted to call out that, like, I think that was my bug. So I'm going to take some notes on the learning. So you were saying, hey, while the namespace was included as a property on the top, on the parent chart, that wasn't necessarily propagated. Now there are two sets of charts. One, the parent is Meshery server, the parent chart. And on the other one, the parent chart is Meshery operator. Do you recall which one the bug was within?
It was in Meshery chart.
Meshery chart, okay. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad that you looked at this as quick as you did, because no one had, or to my knowledge, no one had reported this defect just yet. Do you know, it was in the Meshery chart? Okay. So yeah, that's interesting, because it wouldn't, though, for those that were using Meshery CTL system start, for those that were deploying Meshery in that way, this bug wouldn't have affected them because that chart wouldn't have been used. Okay. Okay, interesting. But the net effect of your change here is that, is it by default, no adapters are installed unless someone explicitly chooses to have them installed?
Yeah.
Okay. And were you, in your tests, were you able to confirm that enabled false is overridable?
Yes, we can, because in our values, in our, like when we, in our override file, we can provide that we want to have enabled as true, and then it can. I can actually look more and probably add a documentation so that it's more understandable by others, but it's possible.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. Just even if it's just a simple example, that'll suffice.
Okay. Thanks, Pranav, for the great update. I'll share my screen again. So next up, we have 3 items in a row from Abdullah.
Okay, for my first, to give a bit of background, interacts with different kinds of Kubernetes clusters, resources contained within the Kubernetes clusters.
Abdullah, sorry to interrupt, Abdullah, but
Prometheus, Grafana,
your
and
voice
with
isn't
platforms
clear.
such as GitHub. So all of these we call all of these connections. And currently we're working on a state machine to manage this. Hello. Is it audible? Is it better now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, current. Okay, and I have raised 2 PRs to support Sonali in creating the connections UI. Okay, so the Meshery Cloud PR has been merged. So this is the PR that would let Sonali fetch connections from Meshery Cloud, and this is what the response would look like. It's a paginated response giving a list of all connections, and this is the corresponding PR in Meshery server. This is open, and so Abid was working on adding a chart for the number of mesh models in Meshery dashboard, and the corresponding Meshery server endpoint for that was broken. So I've hopefully my screen is still visible. Okay, I've stopped sharing. Yeah, I've added a fix to the PR, so now this PR should be functional. This endpoint should be functional. And one thing I've observed while fetching the connections and their status is that the case for some of these status isn't consistent. So this registered should be lowercase, and this change has to be made in the Meshery Cloud database. This was manually added when this registered status was manually added when the status field was first added to the connections table. So this has to be changed to lowercase registered. And I have one more update regarding the addition of flags to load generators when in Meshery CTL performance, and this PR has been merged. So we should be able to pass additional options to the load generator when running performance tests. Does anyone have any questions or feedback? I didn't make that change.
Okay, cool. You did make the change to hyphenation?
Yes, I will make sure I'll check once again, but I'm pretty sure I made that change. Yeah, I don't see any capitalized flags here.
Nice. Well, wow, that was a good update. There's a lot in there. So there's some enhancements to REST-based APIs for how it is that Meshery deals with connections, and more specifically how it tracks the status of connections and reports on that status. So that enables some of the work that Sonali was doing that you were saying. That's wonderful. We will start to see more charts inside of Meshery UI. So that's and then this other one is, I wonder if there are usage examples right here inside of the command, which is super helpful. Do we have an example that uses a custom certificate or a user provided certificate?
Yes, it is here.
Okay, good deal. Now, interestingly, for Uzair, is Uzair on? No, he's not. Or yes, he is. No, he's not. No, he's not. Well, for people other than Uzair who are having a conversation yesterday about, for Uzman, maybe as you go in so Meshery CTL is one client that can use Meshery servers performance management capabilities, and users using this client can provide a path to a certificate file. And this example, it ends in .pem, which as of currently, the other client, the UI client, disallows use of .pem. And so I'm hoping that changes. I'm hoping that we just remove that restriction from the UI, because it just isn't helpful. And so there's no restriction on file extension here, is there?
No, the file pass, certificate file pass is directly passed on to the handler in Meshery server. So there isn't any restrictions with regard to what file can be passed along with the flag.
Okay.
Just reads the content of the file and passes it along.
Nice. Okay. That's great.
Okay. Thanks, Abdullah.
Subedi, I can't help but ask, but on a related note, Subedi, do we have any new tests being exposed in the Service Mesh Performance Dashboard? Subedi. No. Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So Yana has written a couple of documentation for MeshModel and MeshMap. Yana would like to share?
Yes, I'm sharing.
Good.
So currently there are no documentation for users for how to access MeshMap in Meshery UI. So I have added documentation for that. You can see it here. So this is the documentation for using mesh maps. And also there are two modes of mesh map. So I have provided a documentation for using both of the modes of mesh map. Also the PR features on how to using mesh model summary in browser. So here is the documentation on how to access mesh model summary in Meshery UI settings. So that's it.
Yeah, nice work, Yana. So one thing you could do with the mesh map documentation, we have extensions section on which we are defining mesh map and some of its feature. So you can pull this thing over there. So yeah, that looks good. And if anyone has comments on mesh model summary documentation or feedback for Yana.
Yep. Hey, Yana, this is exciting, actually. Sometimes people don't think documentation is exciting, and it actually really is. It's really important that we capture some of the things that, like, for example, that we were just talking about. So I was droning on earlier about mesh models and components and how they get registered and how we're going to expose who registered them, the host or the registrant, the thing that Freedisch or Thibault is working on. And it is helpful to the type of documentation. If you share your screen again, like the assessing mesh model docs, great. Although if you go back and watch the recording and you suffer through listening to me drone on again, you might be able to pull out some things that make documentation actually worth reading. Because I'll say this with hopefully in an encouraging way to you, which is, which is if someone has to come here to read this, we're kind of lost. That means we sort of did a terrible, terrible job of designing a UI that is intuitive and that helps people understand what's going on. If they have to come to here to read like, oh, I click on the summary to view the summary, is like, whoa, not helpful at all. It is, and so that's not a slight on your effort, which looks nice and is well organized and has good structure, etc. That's more of a slight on the UI and whether or not it's intuitive. So my urging to you, or my suggestion to you is to highlight behaviors, things that aren't necessarily readily apparent in the user interface, things like right here on that first screenshot, if you were to click that first screenshot, there in it, hopefully it zoom. Yeah, when you click it, does it give a lighthouse? Does it give a preview of the image? There we go. Yeah, so on the left-hand side, there is this chip. It says in cluster, and it has an X next to it. And if I were a user, I might want to click the chip just to see what happens. I might even want to click the X. Having documentation that explains the behavior behind that is something that I would read, is something that I would be interested in to know and want to know. Like if I click it once, can I get it back? Or is that a permanent thing? Or if I click it, does it blow up my cluster? And you know, what all happens behind the scenes? So if I go into access mesh model summary and I'm navigating through here and I click on things like what, like the questions I would have is this, are these all active models? Should I be expecting that anything that I see, if you click on the second screenshot, should I expect to have access as a user to any of these? I see that some of them are at a given version. How do I know that what version I'm working with as I configure this is the same that's loaded here? Like it's those other much harder, less obvious bits of behavior that's the stuff that's worth documenting. That's the stuff that makes the documentation worth reading. And that's the stuff, those types of questions are what will actually send people to reading the docs, but not the stuff where it's like, to view mesh model summary, click on the mesh model summary tab. You will then see a summary of the mesh models. Like we just said the same thing 8 times and plus the UI showed me that. So anyway, so this is me trying to help you, help us bring forth some awesome documentation that's quite meaningful and quite helpful and quite insightful is really what I'm trying to point out. Having said all of that, if I was in Yana's shoes, I would be saying, okay, that's great, but like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer. Like, I don't know if you're showing me version 1.00, does that mean that like, I don't know the answers to some of those things that Lee just said. That's fine. What a great opportunity for you to learn by asking those questions and then documenting the answers. By you, in some respects, interviewing other contributors who have, been here before you and have implemented some of this stuff, but were either too lazy or too incompetent or too incapable of like doing the documentation. There's a particular skill there that's like an interviewing skill. It's getting at the behaviors. It's getting at underneath the covers and exposing that to readers. Oh man, that's so helpful. So very good. So this is great. We're not quite there yet with this, with what your first draft, but on subsequent drafts, perhaps we'll get there. What do you think? Yeah, me too. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, I will study. I will study about this in further detail and try to implement all those in the documentation.
Nice. I would also, I mean, as you're studying, I would encourage you to be resourceful. I was going to say cheat a little bit, but maybe be resourceful. And to Pranav's suggestion is to use the discussion forum as a place for asking some of those things, because 98% of the other people that read that forum, they too don't know that answer. There's only a handful of people that wrote that particular area of code in this particular area. And sometimes it's easier for them to just answer a question about it and to let someone else piece it together. And so anyway, what I would say is, outside of just trying to slog through the code yourself, one, you can experiment with things and just empirically understand what happens and document the behavior. Two, you can do some interviews of some others that maybe you see some commits from people. You can either go seek them out directly or just ask on the discussion forum. It's a great way to get conversation going. And also it's a nice way of not having to just sit there and try to figure it out yourself. I don't think that that's fair. I don't think I would be successful trying to do that. So, but I'm totally enthused at your the information architecture, the structure that you're using for the docs. It's clean. It's good. We need lots of that.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
So I'm stopping my screen share.
Thanks, Yana. So next up we have Antonette's update. Antonette would like to quickly cover the update.
Okay, so this morning I'm working on adding the formatted fields to the custom logger. So right now I'm testing it through Meshery control and also Meshery to make sure that it worked properly. For the moment, I'm attempting to pass some of the thread that we will exporting them, or I'm sorry, declaring them so that we can use them to try to lower some of the duplication that we have, and then just have it call from meshkit, and then just set up a logger, and then we'll be straight from there instead of having to create two different ones in two different places. Now, the next thing that I would like to do is improve on severity and also try to customize it a little bit by categories. But this is the first part that I'm hoping to get through with the formatting. Hopefully today or tomorrow once I get it working correctly.
Nice. There's some other gophers on the call that this will, so Suhail and I don't think Zaki's on, but but Philip and there's a longer length Thibaut, and there's a number of people on the call. This is something I encourage you to go review and digest a little bit, because it would hopefully in the best of ways have a positive, pervasive effect in which the logs become like the structuring of these logs makes it possible to provide a helpful user experience in the UI, when the UI can determine which logs and which type of logs are appropriate to show to users, depending upon context. So I encourage you all to go digest, form an opinion, because this will have downstream effects in which some of you may be asked to help uplift various places that we're using a meshkit logger. Is that right, Antonette? Or did I characterize that incorrectly?
Yes. The end goal I would like is to be able to get it structured as much so that we can use both the formatted and non-formatted fields, and also nice to have in the future like colors, and just make it more distinctive so that whenever you go through and look at the log, you can see what you're looking at. Change the time formatting, move it in different places. You can do it that way. I have some of those already, but it just trying to check for possible obstacles that could happen. So hopefully we can get that sooner than later, and then that will help us in the long run, for everybody that's contributing, but also for the user experience as well, so that you know exactly what you're looking for and it's clearly right there for you. So yeah, that's the long term goal that I have here. But the first part is just getting the formatting, and then try to clean up a little bit to get the rest of it before we get to the next part.
Suhail, you have an open, just to help reinforce this, I suppose. There's if I get this correct, and Suhail, I think that this is one of your open PRs, and one of the things that I think you were improving. Whoa, lot of one of the things that you were improving upon in the pull request is use of the logger and standardizing on that use as it's centralized in meshkit. And Antonette's proposal is to enhance the centralized logger as Meshery CTL as one of the Meshery components. As you change it to use that centralized logger, and as Antonette enhances the terminal formatter, as she enhances our ability to do the things that she just colorize and categorize, that I think this is an example. If I don't, so Antonette, maybe clarify if you would. Here, if you use Meshery CTL in its current form right now, if you were to run a command like Meshery CTL version, it says, well, the client is at this version, and at the time I wasn't running Meshery server, so it just says I don't know what version of Meshery server it is because it's not available, and so it gives me this output. And by the way, it checks to see if I'm running the latest release, and I'm not. And so this is the output. As we update and standardize Meshery CTL's the logger that it uses to have it use that central logger from meshkit, it becomes a little more, things change. And for us humans, I don't know that it's for the better. We still get the same output, unable to communicate with the server and get the output. But before that, it's, well, in my mind, it's helpful info about the severity of the thing and when it came through as a timestamp and so on. But as a human reading it, it's just gobbledygook that I have to try to slog through to get to the human understandable thing that was custom written to help the rest of the humans understand. And so with the terminal formatter that you're bringing forth, would that provide the ability to mute things like this if wanted, if we desired?
You can actually LogOS has a one of the what do you call it, the text formatter, right? The LogOS has the JSON formatter and the text formatter. The text formatter has multiple fields that you can turn off, and I'm not sure at the time whenever we created that. I'm not going to assume, but we do have the capability to turn off the timestamp and turn off the levels and whatnot. But we can create our own, so we don't have to rely on LogOS text formatter, and then we just change it. We try to copy what LogOS is already doing for the text formatter, and then just try to customize it to our own. So yeah, we can turn the level off and we can turn the timestamp off. So yeah, I mean, we can do whatever we want. It's just a matter of, how do you want it to look? How do you want it to be properly formatted so it can be, have the right pattern and whatnot? So it just let me know and I can try to make it work. But those right there, those two specifically, yeah, they can be muted.
Anybody else have thoughts?
Yeah, so I have seen that in Meshery CTL we were using meshkit logger, but the formatter was like terminal log formatter. So that's the reason why we were not seeing severity, probable cause, and tester remediation. So when I changed the formatter to this log formatter, uh, all the things were visible.
Antonette to the rescue. That's great. Oh, cool. I think Gaurav, thanks for,
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, since we are 6 minutes over and we missed out a couple of items, so is there anything else we need to discuss on priority? This one we should be discussing. I'm not sure, from Philip, because we don't have a CI call this week. So Philip, if you want to quickly go over this.
Yeah.
You're on, okay.
Yeah, so I was able to work on the pattern unit test for Meshery CTL. I've been able to generate some outputs for it. So these are the codes here. I tested different subcommands like apply, delete, list, and view. And also I was able to change the list.go. I reduced the ID to the user's ID to 8 bits to 8 string character. So when the list have been generated in the test case, it gives 8 character output there. So when I ran the test case, everything worked fine and so when I ran the test case, everything worked fine and the outputs were being generated successfully. If it's being merged, I'll be able to give a report for the pattern package, a full code report for the pattern package for Meshery CTL by tomorrow or Friday. So these are the things I changed, the outputs and everything.
Nice. Yeah, is there anything fragile about this that that you think would make it hard to sustain the unit tests?
Fragile.
Yeah, like I guess, yep. So like fragile meaning if the next time that someone makes a behavior change or to the pattern subcommand, how much effort it is to have to go back and make updates in different unit tests. And I don't know, I'm just asking it because tests can be notorious for becoming stale and causing false positives and causing time loss.
Well, one can still look back into it and make some changes if necessary, but that'll be a lot. And maybe well, it depends on the kind of changes that are being made. It depends on the kind of changes. But with this particular procedure, I think everything should be able to work because I followed a particular documentation on how to write unit tests for Meshery CTL. I followed each protocol and each aspect of it, and the outputs were able to be generated. I even ran some other test cases written by some old developers, some of last year, and most of them were generated. Well, they brought out the outputs. So by tomorrow, I'll give a full report. If this is merged, I'll give a full report on the code call for pattern package so we can know our stand.
Out of curiosity, the unit test that involves Kuma, and I'm sure Kuma was just sort of randomly chosen as one of the adapters to run a unit test with. That unit test, it does not require the availability of the Kuma adapter, right? It's just a static piece of, it's just a static fixture. It's toward the bottom there. And I guess if it did require the adapter, it would be more of an integration test, not a unit test. So probably a bad question on my part.
Well, it's just an invalidator I put there. So if it requires changes, I'll change it. I just checked for invalid data or non-existing data to see if the particular view command, subcommand can be able to detect it. So
Got you. Okay. Yep. So yeah, it doesn't really have anything to do with the Kuma specifically. Okay.
I just wanted to like ask something. There is a goal and CI test that is unit test that is failing. I don't know, like, is this PR gonna fix it? I don't know if you saw it, but like, there is a goal and unit test that keeps failing.
Yeah, I've been observing that too, that Golang unit test. I think it's the configuration for it, but the integration test passes, but that unit test keeps failing. I observed it with most of the files when most people merge their PRs. I don't know. I think it's an issue too we should also raise up. The integration test works, but the unit test keeps on failing. That's what I observed too.
All right. I think we can have more conversation on this on Slack or on the pull request. So thanks all for staying this long. So make sure you subscribe to the committee calendar so you don't miss out any of the meetings. And you can get a recording of this development meeting on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. So with that, thanks all for joining. We'll meet you next week, same time, same place. Bye all.
Bye bye.